last time I had to look for a job, all I had to do was put my resume on monster.com.
Yep.
They found me, I interviewed, I got a job.
Yes.
Voila.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Really? So tell us about that.
It's so much work now. It's a lot of, you have to do a lot of cold outreach. You need target companies. So what you need to do is figure out what companies you want to work for. Now I knew the big guys, you know, the big competitors, but there were a lot of companies I never even heard of. So I had to do a lot of research, and that was kind of hard. You know, figure out who do I really want to work for. And then you need to do cold outreach to those folks and say, hey, you know, this is who I am. And you don't ask for anything, because you ask for something, you're not going to get it. But if you say, hey, how was your experience at such and such a company, they'll respond to you. I had a 42% response rate when usually it's like a 17% response rate, because I kept it casual.
So how have you been with getting a job today, or what's happening? Give us an update.
So this is kind of funny. I was getting very frustrated. I was doing everything right per all the career coaches and everything that I had gone to, because I went to tons of networking and job hunting meetings. And I had a good interview ratio to application. It was like 25%, which is good. I went through over 30 interviews, came second runner-up a few times, but I was getting so frustrated. And I said to God, okay, I had gone for a job. I'm like, if I don't get this job, that is your sign to me that I'm going to go to entrepreneurship.
Yep.
So I didn't get the job. And so I said, okay, so I'm going to go to entrepreneurship. I already had one client. I had a couple clients that I was doing some freelancing while I was looking for work. And you know, it's something I'd love to do. And then as soon as I put on LinkedIn, I quit. And I did this post.
I remember that post.
Yeah, it went viral.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did that, one of my favorite target companies contacted me and say, hey, we have consulting engagement where we might be interested in having you. And then another company said, oh, we have a job that we want you to apply to. Definitely look at other options. Don't discount freelancing, consulting, having your own business. It's really important to be flexible in this job market. And what I'm seeing from a lot of my job hunting compadres is they're also having to go into consulting or freelancing or thinking of things. When I had that viral post, a lot of people responded to me with their own entrepreneurship stories and their own consulting stories or their own frustrations with the current job market, because the news is not reflecting how tough it is out there and how tough it has been for the last year
to find a job.
Yes. And there are so many talented, you know, we're not talking schlubs. These people are C-suite and directors and senior directors and people with so much talent and so much to give.
Right.
And they're doing things the right way and they're still struggling. So we have to be, resiliency requires flexibility, adaptability, and reframing situations and saying, okay, well, if this isn't working, maybe this door is closed for me and maybe I need to go someplace else.
And that's so hard to do. So how were you able to tap into that personally, your self-care during that time?
Self-care is so important, and that's when I, like, you know, I'm a speaker and I talk about the relax, reframe, replenish framework, and relaxing, it is so important. So before I would even start job hunting, I love Qigong, which is a Chinese medicine exercise that's similar to Tai Chi, but rather than moving, you stand still. And I wouldn't start my day without that. You know, so that was really important to start my day with self-care. And then also at night, I love to read. So I would always read afterwards, after my day. But I was working, job hunting 10 hours a day.
Wow.
You know, so so it was like, it was even more than a work day. You know, so you'd start at 9, you'd end at 7.
It's a full-time job, more than a full-time job.
It's more than a full-time job.
Especially when you're trying to pay the bills and all the things.
Exactly. And it has all that emotional stress, and you know, it's a huge roller coaster because, oh, I got an interview, I'm so excited. And you know, there were a couple of times I'm like, oh, I've got this, I've got all the qualifications, I rocked the interview, and yeah, we don't know why they chose the other person over you. Yeah, you know, so you're constantly on a high and a low, and oh my God, and then you suffer from a little imposter syndrome. You know you're good, you know you're talented, but then why am I not getting something?
Right.
You know, and a lot of people start equating their value, and I always would try to bolster them up and say, it's not you. It's the environment, it's the market. If this was 3 years ago during the Great Resignation, this wouldn't be an issue.
Anything else you'd like to share with everyone in regards to gaining employment, the whole trying to find work in a tough situation?
Just again, it's not you. Own your value, know who you are. And it's so easy to feel powerless when you are in a situation where you can't control it, but you do have power. So look at other options, you know, be adaptable. Like at first I'm like, no, I'm not going for contract work. No, I'm not going to freelance. No, I don't want part-time. And I was in a different space, you know. Now I'm like, yes, now I'm open to it. So, you know, just be open to possibilities, open to signs of the universe. And I hate to say it, you got to do that cold outreach. I know it's not pleasant, but people are so kind. And that's one thing that I heard that I loved, is that people don't want to be a burden on other people, and that's one of the reasons they don't do the outreach. But then somebody said, you are robbing the other person out of the opportunity to have the joy of giving to you.
Oh, I love that. That's so great.
So, you know, most of us are used to being givers, and we're not so good at the receiving part. But when you are job hunting, you need to receive.
Right, you're at that point in your life.
Right.
Wow.
So people are only too happy to help you, especially people who've been in your same situation.
Yes.
You know, if they've been in your shoes, then they understand and they want to give back.
Yep.
So let them. But actually you need to, because in this day and age, I've heard so many stories on LinkedIn of people throwing, oh, I applied to 2,000 jobs in the last couple months and I haven't gotten one interview. I'm like, how do you apply to 2,000 jobs? I don't get it. You know, to be totally transparent, I applied to maybe 52 in 9 months.
Wow.
Because I was very focused on, hey, I have to really be able to get this. I'm not going to just easy apply.
Yes.
I have to be able to be qualified for it. But I also got a 25% interview ratio on that.
Which is really good.
Right. So, you know, instead of just throwing out application after application, do the network. And that's what I spent most of my time on. When I was on LinkedIn, you know, I had a project plan, which I also highly, highly recommend, is having a plan people don't do. So I'm like, okay, I want to connect with the COO. What's going to do?
Yeah, what do you have to lose?
He doesn't connect.
Yeah.
That's the worst that is going to happen.
I love that.
You know, and I never would have done that in the past.
Yes, right.
You know, because you get trepidatious with all these, ooh, they're a senior vice president. Who am I?
Yes.
I'm like, so you're a senior vice president. Now I'm going to connect with you.
Yes.
Because again, what's going to happen? And they connected with me. I connected with chief of staff. Now I didn't do CEO. I thought that was pushing it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I did COOs. I did chief of staff, and they did connect with me. I even had meetings with some of them.
Wow.
You know, so be bold. You know, again, what you have to lose, and be visible. It's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you.
Very good. Julie Cooley, everybody. Very smart tips here. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing your resilience story. This is awesome. Anything else you want to add?
No, just be bold. And then translate that into your personal life when you get that great job. Don't forget all the lessons that you learned. Networking and being bold and taking risks and knowing your value. Those are continuous life lessons. That's not something that is relegated to the job hunt.
Love it. Thank you, Julie.